And here's the corpse of a cactus, so now you can see how it's structured. Behind me, there's this stunning white desert, and there are these little white streams, I guess. But here's this lovely little house with a balcony. You can imagine stepping out onto that balcony in the morning, wearing some luxurious leopard robe. The wine really smells like tomatoes. Like pickled tomatoes. You open a jar of pickles, and it smells like something strong. Pickled tomatoes with a hint of pepper and dill. That's what this wine is like, ketchup. It's amazing. There it is, the glacier, with massive chunks of ice breaking off constantly. It's a gorgeous path, though slippery in the morning, because everything is iced over. Yes, it's tough going up because ice forms under the blazing sun. The snow melts, and the rocks get coated with ice, making it hard to walk without crampons. Friends, I'm continuing my journey through Argentina. In the last video, we explored the capital, Buenos Aires. I showed you the unique architecture in the city center and the slums on its outskirts. You saw the presidential palace and the widest avenue in the world. In this video, we'll be heading deeper into the country. Argentina's natural landscape can be divided into several regions. On this trip, I visited 4 of them. The first one is called the Pampas. These are vast plains and steppes in eastern Argentina. The landscapes are monotonous and the soil isn't very fertile, but the area is densely populated and well developed for livestock and agriculture. The second region which I went to after Buenos Aires is in the north of the country. The nature up there is much more diverse. You've got plains, jungles, and mountain gorges. Almost year-round, temperatures don't drop below freezing. The region is well known for wine production and mining. Because of its location, northern Argentina has also become a key transportation hub. For example, the northern province of Salta, where I flew to, borders 3 countries: Bolivia, Chile, and Paraguay. Friends, I've now arrived in Salta, which is in northern Argentina. Since Argentina is in the southern hemisphere, for them north is like south for us. Driving along the road here, I'm heading towards the salt mines, and the scenery is just stunning. Majestic mountains, and these massive cacti. I mean, they're about 5 to 6 meters tall, with trunks like trees covered in thorns. Incredible. I've never seen cacti like this before, and it's amazing. They don't just stand around by themselves. They grow together like trees. They grow on the mountain slopes and the valleys. There are even whole forests of these cacti. Some of them look like they're 15 meters tall, with several trunks growing from one to another, forming this giant cactus tree. And here's the corpse of a cactus, so now you can see how it's structured. It has this kind of skin, and after it dries up, it looks like this. Spines, all the pulp. It dries and looks like this peel, kind of like fish scales. And then there's the solid core, which looks more like wood. It's like this, fibers, and the thickness of these fibers is about 5 to 10 millimeters, forming a sort of mesh. Depending on how old the cactus is, it may look different. And actually, this trunk and these fibers can even be used in construction. Despite the abundance of these cacti here, they're still endangered because locals use them for building. This one here is about 50 to 60 centimeters in diameter, so it's really massive. This particular cactus isn't that big, maybe 40 centimeters, but it still looks impressive. I've read some data and it turns out some of these cacti can live up to 1,000 years, although on average a cactus like this lives for 200 years. You look at it and think, wow, this thing's lived through the time of Napoleon. What an amazing planet we live on. Why don't we know how to protect and preserve the beauty around us? We just don't appreciate it enough. It's really something, so let's keep enjoying it. In Argentina, just like in Bolivia and Peru, there are salt flats. These are located at a high altitude, about 4,000 meters, where you can find salt lakes. Well, not exactly a lake in the usual sense. It's this giant, vast white salt plateau. On one side, they mine salt here, and on the other, tourists come to take impressive photos. Because as you can see behind me, there's this stunning white desert. And there are these little white streams, I guess. They're basically used for salt mining. They dig them out, fill them with water, and somehow it all turns into salt. Right here you can see they've already scraped the dirt away with a blade. The salt layer here is just a few centimeters thick, so they make these little channels which get filled with salty water. Then, from what I understand, they take that super concentrated salt water from the channels and pour it over the area again. The water evaporates and then the salt is left behind, which they collect. It's a pretty simple process, but it creates these amazing natural wonders. Here you can see the salt and one of the grooves. If you come out here in your own car, you can drive down and cruise around on the salt flats. It's pretty cool because the surface is perfectly flat. You can take some awesome photos. Everything's great. Though the locals have turned this into a business, charging money for you to go down. They say you need a guide or an escort. That'll cost you 1,500 pesos. But actually, if you go a bit further, there are plenty of other places where you can drive down. No barriers, no signs, nothing. You can safely head down. No fees, no guides, no escorts, and just soak in all this beauty. And yet, there are some clever Argentinians here charging you money just to let you drive down. A truck has arrived at the salt factory. Well, it's more like a pile of salt, where they sift, clean, and pack it all into salt bags. After visiting the salt flats, I headed to the region's capital. It's also called Salto. The city is famous for its well-preserved colonial architecture. The Spanish began settling in Argentina in the first half of the 16th century. The Spanish conquistadors competed with the Portuguese, who were also gaining power in nearby Brazil at the same time. Originally, this new territory became part of the Viceroyalty of Peru, a territorial union of all Spanish colonies, which aside from Peru and Argentina, included parts of what are now Chile, Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, and Bolivia. Later, the Spanish divided these territories, and Argentina became part of the new Viceroyalty of Rio de la Plata. Its capital was Buenos Aires. In the early 19th century, as Spain faced political turmoil, Rio de la Plata, along with other colonies, participated in a war against the Spanish conquistadors. Many battles with the colonizers took place in Salto. In 1816, Argentina declared its independence. This is what the center of Salto looks like. It's amazing. There's writing on the walls everywhere. Could be something important. Oh, look at that house. The writing here is quite a mess. But here's this lovely little house with a balcony. You can imagine stepping out onto that balcony in the morning, wearing some luxurious leopard robe, gazing at the surroundings. But sadly, it's not so beautiful anymore. There are some panel buildings here and a warehouse over there. This house is probably the only decent one on the whole street. You can even peek inside the entrance. Original gates and mostly preserved interior. This staircase is wooden, showing it was once a wealthy home. And look how they've installed the chandelier. It's obvious that people have been moved into these stunning historical interiors but don't know how to appreciate or maintain them. They've painted the walls with primitive drawings. Instead of a gorgeous chandelier, it's literally a bare light bulb. The murals have been painted over. As they say, the house is lost. And really, the whole street seems gone. Because it's clear that people couldn't manage to build anything attractive. The era is gone when the people respected themselves, understood aesthetics, and built beautiful cities. People used to make tall doors. You'd think it was because people were taller back then. No, they just had different ideas of what a door should be. Now you can see they had an old, tall doorway. But as people's preferences have shrunk, they no longer need a big door. You see, they even fill in the old doorways, leaving just a small, small door. Like how people used to crouch into village toilets or barracks. Now they do the same because that's what feels comfortable. But people used to understand what it meant to live luxuriously. This is Argentine modernism. Check out this amazing door that's still intact. It's got some floral, plant-inspired patterns. It's tall, and no one's broken it yet. Over here in the parking lot, look at this fascinating machine. You put in a slip of paper, and it's like a super old time clock. That's it. It stamps the time. I'm not sure where it's printed, but anyway, it's some kind of ancient parking machine that stamps the time when you park. Wow, and they also have an old traffic light. It's basically a retro parking lot. Here's the main square. It looks very similar to the main square in Raichup. Even the cathedral looks similar, except for that ugly glass building over there. Of course, the main square looks similar to many other main squares in Latin America, for the simple reason that they were designed more or less by the same architects. Speaking of colonial architecture, when people talk about colonial architecture, they usually mean something interesting, high quality and beautiful. But that's not entirely true. In contrast to what's being built today, local architecture does indeed stand out as interesting. However, you have to remember that in the 17th and 18th centuries, who exactly went to design in the colonies? A top-tier architect wouldn't move to the colonies to work. Everyone wanted to design and build in Madrid, Paris, or London. Going to the ends of the earth to work on projects there would be like asking a famous director to go direct plays in a village theater. Sure, it's possible, maybe for a charity event or something, but the scale isn't the same, and since architects are ambitious people, the talented ones stayed in Europe. They sell these dust collectors here. They hang them on doors and elsewhere. I assume they're made from llama wool. Salto is remarkably reminiscent of Peru's Arequipa. It has similar streets. Here's another cathedral that looks like a birthday cake. There's one tall bell tower, lots of decorations, and it dates back to 1882. And right here is the central square of Salto. The square is called July 9. Just like the main avenue in Buenos Aires, named after the day Argentina gained independence. It's a lovely spot if you're in Salto. You should definitely visit. Here's an interesting find, folks. Look at this. There's something like a grill here. You can buy an empanada for 100 pesos. 100 pesos, thank you. The empanada is supposed to be filled with ham and cheese, and this is what a cactus looks like when it dies. It has these rough fibers. When it dries out, it becomes like wood inside, hollow. But unlike wood, it's fibrous. Is this a cactus? It's a cactus. These are local experts. And here's what a cactus board looks like. They cut the cactus into boards, and it creates this interesting fiber board. It's not very useful for construction, but it might work as insulation. However, it makes a decent decorative material. From Salto, I traveled to the town of Cafayate, where you can enjoy some delicious wine. I'm now in Cafayate. Tourists come here to see the rocky valley of Quebrada de las Conchas and to drink the renowned local wine. At 1,600 meters above sea level, the climate here is favorable with low humidity, allowing the cultivation of Cabernet Sauvignon and Malbec grapes, from which red wines are made. By the way, winemaking was introduced to Argentina by the Spanish in the 16th century. Until the end of the 20th century, Argentina produced inexpensive wines that were sold locally and not exported. However, modern entrepreneurs have elevated the country's wine industry to a global level in just a few years. In 2020, Argentina ranked 5th in the world in wine production and 7th in vineyard area, all thanks to the climate in regions like Cafayate. Argentine wines are not affected by insects, mold, fungi, or other diseases. This is also where the Argentine Torrontés grape is grown, which is used to produce white wine. Let's go taste it. Overall, it's a very nice, charming place. By the way, the wineries here often have excellent hotels, where you can stay with views of the vineyards and mountains, and enjoy the stunning scenery. This is what a typical winery looks like. I've visited many wineries in all the major wine-producing countries. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, France, Italy, Argentina, Chile, and the US. I can say that wineries generally look quite similar. I'm referring to the ones that welcome tourists and offer tours. There's usually a lovely restaurant with fantastic views, a production facility where they show how the wine is made, and of course a shop. But the most impressive feature is always the views. Here, for example, you can see the beauty of the valley surrounding this wine estate. This building is new, but there's a special charm in historic ones. The thrill is in visiting old estates that have been making wine for centuries and have a rich history. Oh, and look at this giant cacti. That's where the tastings are held.
He will be turning 130 years old this year.
130 years.
130 years, yeah. We're one of the oldest here in the valley and also one of the biggest. Here we produce 7 million liters of wine every year. We have vineyards here in Cafayate, like 500 here in Cafayate and 300 more in Catamarca. So the wine tasting that you choose is like a comparison. You will compare wine from Cafayate and wine from Catamarca.
The wine really smells like tomatoes. Like pickled tomatoes. You open a jar of pickles, and it smells like something strong. Pickled tomatoes with a hint of pepper and dill. That's what this wine is like. Ketchup.
Yeah, it's similar to ketchup. Like dried tomatoes, personally, sometimes I feel kind of a fruity smell. Like if I
Ketchup wine.
can shake it, I sense it smell like you see some hard candy, hard strawberry or cherry candy sometimes. Yeah, the more you shake it, the more intense the smell of it is. Yeah.
Like tomato ice cream.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried tomato ice cream? No? It's just a frozen ketchup.
Oh, really? When you go, you can see, you can get those vineyards over there. Those are the thicker ones, the ones that are 63 years old in this case.
Oh, this is how many days there were without an accident in production, probably.
6,000 liter barrels. These ones are bigger, that last longer, maybe like 15 years. But the smaller the barrel, the more concentration of flavor you have at the end. So,
How many people work here on your winery?
yeah, probably like 100, 150.
All of them from Cafayate.
Yeah. When it's harvest time, they will have like 200, 250 more during the harvest. So it is in the middle of the winery. We have different tanks, like we have the wood tanks, the concrete tanks, but mainly we use the steel tanks, the ones over there. That one is the winemaker. And we have these underground tanks over here. The concrete tanks that you saw in the middle, those are kind of modern. These ones are really old, they are concrete with minerals, but those minerals fall off the wall and get into the wine, so it's nothing. Nowadays we have to cover that. We cover it with epoxy and we can use it one more time.
The best thing about regions like this is living right on the winery, surrounded by these massive vineyards, olive trees, sycamores, and lavender. There are a lot of hotels here, with little houses overlooking the vineyards. You wake up in the morning and instead of high-rises or dirty courtyards, you're greeted by stunning beauty. And here at the winery, they have some really old vines. You can tell by their trunks, 63 years old. Look, it's the size of my hand. It's a massive grapevine. You don't come across that too often, old vines. There are old barrels outside too. They're in this unusual shape. The shape was designed so they could be shipped by rail. Like other wineries, there's a hotel here too. The hotel has a separate entrance through gates like this. The winery itself is beautiful, but the rooms are pretty simple and small, with views of the lawn. But there are lovely courtyards with orange trees. One courtyard, then another. The architecture makes it seem like this used to be a monastery maybe, and here's an old carriage. Now, these are the giant vats they make wine in today. And here are more guest rooms. The landscaping is amazing. Greenery everywhere. But what's really special is the authentic old architecture. This winery is 130 years old. You can really feel the history. You just want to live here. From Cafayate, I flew to Patagonia. It's a vast rural region covering almost all of southern South America. It's divided between Argentina and Chile. In the 16th century, the explorer Ferdinand Magellan discovered the region. He named it Patagonia after meeting the indigenous people. The word Patagon in Spanish means big-footed. According to one version, Magellan called the locals big-footed because they were much larger and taller than the average Spaniard. The first stop in my Patagonian adventure was the resort town of El Calafate. And so I arrived in El Calafate, which is also in Patagonia, because when you're in Argentina, it's not just about drinking wine and watching tango. You have to appreciate the nature too. Of course, it's about hiking, mountains, and the raw wilderness. This is what El Calafate Airport looks like. A brand new building. Quite nice. A single-story airport with a sleek design. Concrete, stone. It's as harsh as the local nature. There are tourist buses here already waiting for people. You can also rent a car to hit the road and experience freedom in these vast, endless steppes. All right, let's go. Most of Argentine Patagonia is made up of desert plateaus and steppes with an arid, cool climate. Closer to the Chilean border, they transition into the Andes. So the scenery shifts to glaciers, snow-capped mountain peaks, lakes, and forests. From El Calafate, I headed to Perito Moreno to see the bustling, moving glacier that has become a popular tourist attraction. Friends, what we have here is just unbelievable. It's a moss-covered forest. There are trees, and all the trees are covered in some kind of lichen. It's all covered in moss. The glacier is really loud. This huge mass of ice is constantly moving. You can't see it, but you can hear it, because the ice cracks as it shifts. Pieces of it break off and fall into the water. And then there are cracks inside it. And you can hear it really clearly. By the way, because this is a protected area, they've made sure that migration paths for hedgehogs, ground squirrels, or whatever animals are here aren't disturbed by the trails. All the paths are elevated off the ground. It's amazing. There it is, the glacier, with massive chunks of ice breaking off constantly. An incredible, magnificent glacier somewhere on the horizon. But how do you get closer? Well, you can kayak there. They have these amazing kayaks. It's mostly locals here, by the way. Not too many tourists at the moment. And now, our group is going to head out on kayaks to the glacier. By the way, everyone's wearing special wetsuits. They say if you capsize, you can still survive. The main danger on a kayaking trip is the wind. It'll blow you off course. and you'll have to paddle hard. The key is to not get stuck near the ice because the glacier ice collapses, and that could get messy. It looks much better in the pictures. The travel agencies paint such a beautiful image, kayaking right among the icebergs, just under the glacier walls, but in reality, no. You can only get within 600 meters of it. And yes, it's beautiful, stunning, but still quite far away. The boats they run here can get much closer. The kayak tour costs $170. And that's the closest you can get to the glacier. They tell us it's due to the weather, specifically the wind. Apparently they're afraid the wind might shift and push the kayaks right under the glacier. And since it's collapsing, you can't get too close. But still, I think it's a bit far. Today, by the way, the weather isn't great because the wind is pretty strong. The kayaks didn't impress me, so I decided to try a different kind of tourism, mountain hiking. My destination was Mount Fitz Roy, one of the most beautiful peaks in Argentina. So today's amazing adventure begins as we take in the stunning views of the Patagonian mountains and Fitz Roy. The main attraction here is the local peak, which people are willing to trek tens of kilometers for, without food, water, or even beer. There are several tracks, several routes, but they are all one-day hikes, around 20 kilometers. You can do a circular route, going back and forth from this village. Or you can take a taxi to a point and do a linear route. That's also about 20 kilometers. Right at the start of the trail, there's a small hotel. I'm not sure if it's operational, and this is what the trail looks like, with some incredibly beautiful trees. Look at each branch. Nature is stunning. The path winds through a magical forest. The first kilometers are flat, running along the river, and toward the end, the climb begins. The total elevation gain on this track is about 800 meters. It's a gorgeous path, though slippery in the morning, because everything is iced over. After about 5 kilometers, the trail enters an incredible snow-covered forest. The elevation gain is already 270 meters, and 5 kilometers have been covered. Overall, the trail is relatively easy. So far, there haven't been any tough sections or steep climbs. The only challenge is that there isn't always enough navigation or information signs. I downloaded an offline map and I'm following it. People walking just by the trail might get lost in this magical forest. Luckily, it's easy to follow footprints on the snowy path right now. But if you're the first one to walk the trail, you could wander off track. The road is stunning. A tunnel carved through the brush. Check it out. And Fitz Roy Mountain is simply spectacular. The cliffs are steep like fangs. By the way, climbers have conquered them, and they only started doing so relatively recently. It's considered a very difficult climb, but some managed to achieve it. The last kilometer before the lake. The main reason everyone hikes here starts with a steep ascent, around 400 meters of elevation gain. The slope is pretty steep. Yes, it's tough going up because ice forms under the blazing sun. The snow melts and the rocks get coated with ice, making it hard to walk without crampons. A lot of people here have crampons. I'm in regular boots, so it's a bit slippery. But take a look, friends. Look at the reward. Breathtaking peaks. It's like something out of a fairy tale. It's hard to imagine that this is right here on Earth. As you climb, the landscape changes. You start in a tundra-like area, with some trees still holding on to their leaves, remnants of autumn. Then, gradually, the forest becomes snow-covered, with more and more snow. Eventually, the trees disappear entirely, and you climb up rocky slopes. unveiling a whole new world, like a lost world. These stunning peaks, it's pure euphoria. I'm not sure I can fully express it, but trust me, it looks incredible. The last gusts of wind, and there it is, the reason everyone hikes here. And there it is, folks, Fitz Roy Peak, probably the most beautiful peak in Argentina, maybe even the world. Just look at these mountains standing at 3,405 meters high. The lake at the foot of the mountain was formed by melting glaciers. These glaciers cascade down the slopes. The beauty is simply breathtaking, and it's absolutely worth spending an entire day to reach these magnificent places. Now I'm at the end of the trail, almost 23 kilometers from the starting point, and this is the view at the finish line. The landscape has completely transformed. From here, there's a scenic overlook with a view of the valley. You can even spot someone running with a heavy backpack through the mountains. What a sight! At the end of every trail, you're rewarded with a spectacular view of El Chaltén. It's the village closest to the mountain glaciers, full of hotels and little restaurants. This is where people start their hiking journey on foot, and for me, it's where today's journey ends. I can already see an amazing bar with craft beer. That's where I'm heading next. But my adventures didn't end with this one trek. Afterward, I made my way to Lago del Desierto, a lake just a few kilometers from the Chilean border. The area is filled with endless trails where you can hike for half an hour, a day, or even a week. No matter where you stop, the scenery is astonishingly beautiful. The nature here is incredible, absolutely unique, probably like nowhere else on the planet. You feel immense joy being here. Visiting Argentina, specifically Patagonia, is worth it just to disconnect from civilization and immerse yourself in the pure beauty of our planet. There's no cell signal here, so it's the perfect escape. The fact that it's autumn and the off-season with no crowds adds to the experience. It's almost like being completely alone. You can walk for a few hours on the trail and not meet a single soul. Of course, the main concern is not encountering any wild animals that could potentially be dangerous, but everything seems safe here. Another cool thing about this place is how clean it is. Either there are people who clean it regularly, or the visitors who come here are just extremely mindful. There's absolutely no litter, no papers, no bottles left behind. And surprisingly, there aren't any trash bins or containers around. You'd think that would lead some people to leave trash. But nope, everything is pristine. There's also a small boat on the lake, which might offer rides at some point. But again, it's the off-season, so nothing is operating right now. The water is so clear. It's rare to see such purity anywhere else. Finally, I want to show you how people live at the very end of the world. For this, I flew from Patagonia to the Tierra del Fuego archipelago. This is where not only Argentina, but all of South America comes to an end. Beyond the Drake Passage lies Antarctica. Here's what the airport in Ushuaia looks like. It's a small, cozy building made mostly of wood. All the beams are exposed, so you can see everything. It's compact and welcoming, exactly how a regional airport should feel. You'll notice how lightweight the structure is, no heavy concrete. Interestingly, there's no security or inspections. And right outside, you can rent a car. As for rental companies, Prices are pretty much the same as in Europe. If you arrive without a reservation, as I did, I'm now at Eurocar. I rented a small car, some tiny Toyota. It cost 12,000 pesos, which at an official rate is about $120 a day. But at the unofficial rate, it's around $60, which is a good deal. And by the way, you can pay in cash in pesos, but you definitely need to have a credit card where they can block the money. So you can't do without one. There are plenty of rental companies, and even during the off-season, you'll find a car available. Now I'm on Tierra del Fuego. It's an archipelago at the very southern tip of South America. These islands were named the Land of Fire by Ferdinand Magellan during his circumnavigation of the globe. The indigenous people were burning fires along the shores, and from afar, the explorer mistook the smoke and flames for volcanic activity. Despite its fiery name, the land here is anything but. It's barren and cold. Due to ocean currents, the temperature stays nearly the same throughout the year. In winter, it's around 0 degrees Celsius, and in summer, it doesn't go above 10 degrees. The Tierra del Fuego Islands are shared by both Argentina and Chile. Now, their borders are clearly defined by the Beagle Channel. But it wasn't always like this. In the 20th century, just before the Falklands War, the borders weren't clearly defined. So Argentina was planning a military operation against Chile to seize the disrupted territories of the archipelago. Both countries armed themselves and prepared their troops, but the looming conflict was averted thanks to the British government and the Vatican, who mediated long negotiations. These culminated in the 1984 peace treaty that established the border along the Beagle Channel. Interestingly, there are signs everywhere referencing the Malvinas Islands. Some even note the distance to them. One sign here says it's 797 kilometers. And there's no shortage of plaques reinforcing that this is Argentina's land. What's also intriguing is how the Malvinas Islands are depicted in great detail on various maps. If other features are portrayed with vague outlines, the Malvinas are always shown down to the smallest detail. This is a crucial and symbolic matter for Argentina. In the late 1970s, the Argentine government became concerned that Chile, which controls most of the Tierra del Fuego, might try to take over the entire archipelago. To counter this, Argentina sought to attract more people and industry to the region. They created a special economic zone with higher wages and lower taxes. However, despite these efforts, not many people were drawn to the area. Fewer than 60,000 people live in Ushuaia, the capital of Tierra del Fuego. But when the government restricted imports to protect domestic industry, several factories and plants sprang up here, producing household appliances, computers, and phones to replace foreign goods. Of course, the components for these products were imported from countries like China. Even so, Tierra del Fuego became a hub for Argentina's import substitution efforts. However, locals are hesitant to buy domestically produced goods because, frankly, it's not cost-effective. Argentine-made products tend to be twice as expensive as foreign brands. Now, friends, we come to a segment some of you may love, titled Varlamov Came at the Wrong Time and The Pig Will Find the Mud. In any case, I decided to take a look not at the breathtaking nature of Patagonia or the stunning local landscapes, but at the miserable state of the local urban development. In the giant Ushuaia, there's a massive new residential district. Now I'll show you what these houses look like and how Argentinians are building houses today. This is what the houses look like. The cladding is made of metal profiled sheeting. The construction is quite shoddy. The houses are arranged in a square, forming a courtyard in the middle. This is literally the cheapest housing you can imagine. There are no internal stairs. It's just a metal frame clad in these profiled metal sheets with insulation. Basically, this is the kind of construction used for temporary housing or makeshift construction camps, and there are exterior metal stairs. Notice the fences. These fences are so massive and sturdy that even if a truck crashed into one, the fence wouldn't budge. But why build such massive fences? I have no idea. And speaking of strange choices, look at these concrete benches with tables scattered around the yard. What are we supposed to make of this? These houses have external staircases. There are no internal stairwells like we're used to, so every apartment is accessed by these awful exterior stairs. Many residents have grills made from barrels, like smokehouses. In fact, you can even spot some in the courtyards. Here, there's a children's playground. The playground is as shabby as can be. Everything is painted in random bright colors, like something out of Google's palette. The colors don't match at all. It's as if they went out of their way to make it as tacky and ugly as possible. What a disaster. This might just be the worst example of cheap modern housing I've ever seen. And you might think, these must be temporary construction cabins, right? No, folks, these are whole residential neighborhoods. They stretch along the road in what's otherwise a nice area. It's no mistake, this is how they're actually building new homes here. Look, they even have these odd concrete benches. And here's a barbecue spot. Oh, and a cat has wandered in. What are you yelling about? I get the feeling this cat is angry. I wonder if cats can be evil. Seems like it. This one looks like it's ready to eat me. Not exactly what I had planned. Here's the other side of the houses. The dirty plastic windows, bars on the first floors. You can see these neighborhoods just stretch on. How could they build such horrid housing in such a beautiful place? I really can't wrap my head around it. And there's a woman climbing those awful stairs to get to her apartment. A lot of the houses already look run down and filthy. People are stringing up wires everywhere. See how they dangle around? There's all this mess, wires hanging everywhere like cobwebs. So friends, you can see how they're building utterly dreadful housing in such a stunning location. How is this possible? Why? It's beyond comprehension. In the past 8 years, not much has changed in Argentina. The slums I visited back then are no longer dangerous crime hotbeds. They've even started building new housing there. But the people living in them, like in other poor areas of Argentina, are still struggling with ongoing economic crisis that just never seems to end. The Argentine landscape remains the same as I remember. Endless steppes, dotted with cacti. The majestic mountains and gorges haven't changed since my last visit. That's comforting to see. This time I spent just under 2 weeks in Argentina, but I didn't have time to witness all the beauty this country has to offer. You'd need much more time to fully explore such a vast land and rich culture. That was Argentina, friends. Hope you found this interesting. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share this video on Reddit and send the link to your friends via WhatsApp. And if you enjoy what my team and I do, you can support us by subscribing monthly on Patreon or Boosty, so we can continue bringing you awesome content. Goodbye, everyone.